We're getting back to we want to produce as much as we can. And now these two here, we take a look at those in the business side. Purchasing power, our dollar bill, what we can do with it. All right? That dollar bill, how much can I buy with my dollar? Can I buy more? Can I buy less? But we want to make sure that we can maximize the purchasing power. So that's what the government said they were going to do. Along with that, they established economists for Congress. So when Congress was getting ready to pass a bill, they would go ahead and the economists would get together and say, this is what it's going to charge the economy. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what it's going to do. It's what the effect is going to be on our economy. So if Congress reads the bill, and if Congress reads the economic impact of the bill, then they would be an informed voter. But one of the things that happened back in 2010, and it just happened now in March of 2020, we passed a huge bill, hundreds and hundreds, and the Affordable Care Act, over 1,600 pages in that bill, and nobody read it. They didn't have a chance to read it. It was push, 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 shove, 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 let's get it done now. Right? In the instance of the Affordable Care Act, it had to do with an election because Ted Kennedy had died, and Senator Brown was looked like he was going to win the Massachusetts senatorial election, which he did. And his big campaign thing is, I'm Senator 41. Or in other words, he could have filibustered the Affordable Care Act, and with 41 Republican senators, it could not have been changed. The filibuster would have stand, we never would have had the Affordable Care Act. And people going, oh, well that would hurt so many people. Well, let me give you a few facts. First off, back then, 85% of the people that had insurance liked the insurance they had. They didn't want to change. Now, we were told we didn't have to change, but basically there was something in the Affordable Care Act that it was going to change anyway. Because the fine print in the Affordable Care Act said, if you keep your same plan, you can keep it and you don't have to go to the Affordable Care Act. The problem was, as part of that was, every year your premium changes. If the premium changed according to the Affordable Care Act, your plan changed. So at the end of the first year, or when everybody was getting new premiums, they all had to go to the Affordable Care Act. Unless you had a special dispensation from the government. In other words, they said, well, yeah, we'll go ahead and let you keep this one. But you had to request it. And if you're not one of the big people on the block, you don't get the request, or if you even got it in, you didn't get it granted. So you had to change your plan. Okay? So 85% of the people liked what they had, didn't want to change. And we had a little over 30 million people that weren't insured. Well, let's bring up to today. Okay? Now that's 10 years ago. And guess what? The numbers that I've seen recently, we still have 27 million people uninsured. Well, wait a minute. We had 30 million people 10 years ago. We have 27 million still today that are uninsured. Why aren't they all insured? Well, because the Affordable Care Act, it took care of the poor, but if you made a certain amount of money, you couldn't get any of the subsidies from the Affordable Care Act. So now you had to go ahead and buy the insurance that the Affordable Care Act said this is what you now have to have, which was much more expensive. And a lot of people said, I can't afford it. So where the poor may have got insurance, the lower middle class kind of got cut out of that. And the middle class started getting cut out of that because they didn't have the money to go ahead and buy the higher insurance levels, because we had to do it. And what were some of the things that the Affordable Care put in there? Well, let's just give you one example. Men, you are now covered if you have any kind of a pregnancy problem under the Affordable Care Act. Every insurance policy has to have these stuff in there. And that would be prenatal coverage during the delivery and post-delivery coverage. All men are now covered on that. We are paying in our insurance policies for that coverage. Okay? Before we didn't have to, so our insurance policies would be a little less. But now we have to, so the insurance policies are more. So one example of that. So this is where we're going with this, all right? Now, the government spends ways in two different ways. They do it in non-discretionary or discretionary means. Now, all this means is, do we vote or not vote on that spending? Because remember, in passing a law, if you look down at the bottom, the House of Representatives, that's where all spending bills start, where all the money starts going. So, what they did is there are bills that we have to pass every year, or new things that we want to do, and it takes a vote. These are the appropriation bills, or what you might call the budget of the United States. That has to be done every year. Entitlements, on the other hand, we pass the law saying not only are we not going to go ahead and vote on them every year, but inside of each of these laws, there is a specific thing that says they will increase to keep up with inflation. So not only do we never vote on them again, but they will continue to increase over time. And they have. So, discretionary, fiscal policy, the appropriation bills, and other things such as the coronavirus stimulus package have to have a vote. Non-discretionary fiscal policies, they're already law. They were voted on once, but they never have to be voted on again. So you don't have to vote on these. Now, all this part here, this is non-discretionary. This stuff keeps going up, or in other words, 61%. Now this is the, excuse me, the fiscal 2018 bills that we're paying. So 61%, or $2.5 trillion, automatically has to be spent. Then this green part here, that's the debt we have to spend on what we owe. So that's $316 billion. And then we have the government side of things. This is the Department of Defense, $266 billion, and all of the other parts of government that operate, $658 billion. Now, when we're trying to get rid of that $22 trillion debt, we're not doing it from the whole thing. We're trying to do it from right here. So we're trying to do it from 1/3 of the budget, while these parts of the budget keep going up. So, you know, it's one of those things of, if you don't understand this, you don't understand why we continue to have our debt increasing. When you got 2/3 of it going up all the time, and you're trying to squeeze the government to do less, because this is where the money comes to pay down the debt, you know, then you start going, well, what's the government going to get rid of that we might need? So this is where we're trying to get that money from, and it doesn't work. We need to start taking a look at this and see what's going on. And I'm saying that, hey, I'm getting close to retirement, right? Social Security, Medicare, all that kind of stuff, that's me in here. But if we don't do something, matter of fact, the paper you're going to see at the end of this, if we don't do something, we're not even going to have that when you guys start retiring, and I probably will have less and less of it before I die. All right. Now, there are built-in stabilizers to this fiscal policy, and that's kind of, when we're in a recession, we go ahead and we try to spend our way out of it. You kind of heard that a little bit. We'll get into it a little bit more. So the deficit all of a sudden increases. So that's a bad thing. We've got less money to go ahead, the debt keeps going up. Of course, if our economy is expanding, we're doing this, we've got more taxes coming in. So the idea is when we're expanding, we pay off, because when we're in a recession, our taxes are going down. The problem is yes, in a recession, our taxes do go down because our economy is shrinking. But when we go into an expansion and we get all that extra tax money, the government goes, ooh, what else can we spend it on? Instead of spending the debt now. So therein lies another problem with trying to get rid of our debt and the debt continuing to climb over and over again. Now, our tax system is one of these stabilizers. We have what's called a progressive tax system. The more you make, the more you're taxed. The less you make, the less you're taxed. That's just the way it works. All right. Now, this part we're not going to talk too much about, because we're going to be looking at this, because this is fiscal policy that we can have something to do with. Expansionary fiscal policy. We want the economy to grow. We want our circular flow diagram to grow. And normally, and going back to the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve, you'll notice here, hey, we're in a recession. And if you remember back then, I mentioned we're our own worst enemy in a recession. So we need somebody to nudge us to get us to start spending more. That's where this taxes and government spending come into play, to go ahead and nudge us to come this direction. The other fiscal policy is contractionary fiscal policy. If we're spending too much, if we're up in the inflation zone, which again, if you remember from the last chapter, that's not good either, and again, we're responsible for it. So we need the government to go ahead and nudge us not to spend so much so we can get back into here and stay there. So those are the two policies we're looking at. Now, the last part on this is looking at political leanings on taxes and spending. Okay? Now, we're not talking about Republicans and Democrats. We're talking about conservatives and liberals. Now, conservatives, they want to lower taxes and lower spending. Liberals, or progressives now, they changed their name from liberal to progressive about almost 10 years ago now. They want to raise spending and raise taxes. The idea being that conservatives want less government and more personal choice, and liberals or progressives want more government and less personal choice. Now, the thing about it is there's a fine line here that we're looking to be at. Because we have to have some government. So, both of them, yep, we're going to have government. But the conservatives want the least amount of government and the more personal choice that we can make. But if you remember earlier when I was talking about those quintiles, if we make bad choices, instead of growing the economy, we can shrink the economy. So that's where some folks say, well, then we need less government or less personal choice so we can make sure people don't make mistakes, and more government telling us what to do. So this is kind of the focus that we're looking at, and this is what this sheet should now look like. And this is the end of this particular section.